Eleanor Blackwood's hands trembled as the carriage wheels ground to a halt. Outside, the setting sun painted the vast frontier landscape in shades of amber and crimson, a beauty she might have admired under different circumstances. The journey had taken weeks, weeks of silent tears and hollow aches in her chest that seemed to expand with each mile that separated her from the only home she'd ever known. "We've arrived, my lady," the driver announced, his voice devoid of emotion. He hadn't spoken more than a dozen words to her throughout their journey. No one had, not since her father's decree. "You've become an embarrassment, Eleanor," Duke Blackwood had said, refusing to meet her eyes as he signed the documents that would send her away. "No suitable man will have you. At least this way, you might serve some purpose in securing our Western interests." Those words had cut deeper than any physical wound. 22 years as his daughter, and in the end, she had been reduced to a political bargaining chip, one her father was all too eager to discard. Eleanor smoothed the wrinkles from her traveling dress, the fabric straining against her generous figure. Once, her mother had called her statuesque and regal, words meant to soften the cruelty of others who whispered ungainly and excessive behind gloved hands at every ball and gathering. After her mother's death, those kinder words had vanished from Eleanor's life, replaced by her father's thinly veiled disgust and society's rejection. "Lady Eleanor," a stern-faced military officer appeared at the carriage door. "The Apache representative will arrive shortly. Please remember, this arrangement is crucial for maintaining peace in the territory." Peace, as if she were a treaty and not a person. Eleanor stepped down from the carriage, her legs stiff from confinement. The trading post consisted of little more than a weathered building and a few scattered structures. Beyond lay the vast, untamed wilderness, her future. Will I ever return?" she asked, her voice smaller than she intended. The officer's expression softened momentarily. "Your father was explicit, my lady. This arrangement is permanent." Permanent. The word echoed in her mind as she watched the sun sink below the horizon. Abandoned by her family, discarded by society, and delivered into the unknown. When the Apache party arrived, Eleanor had expected warriors with stern faces and hostile eyes. Instead, she found herself facing a single man who approached with a quiet dignity that commanded attention. Tall and powerfully built, with intelligent eyes that seemed to see through pretense, he introduced himself simply as Maka. The officer spoke rapidly, explaining the arrangement, in terms that made Eleanor's cheeks burn with humiliation. With each word, Maka's expression darkened, his gaze shifting between the officer and Eleanor with growing intensity. When the officer finished, Maka stepped forward. "You bring this woman as if she were a trade good," he said in perfect English, his voice controlled but edged with anger. "She is not a peace offering. She is a person." Eleanor's head snapped up, startled by his words, the first to acknowledge her humanity in months. "These are your orders," the officer insisted, pushing the papers forward. Maka didn't touch them. Instead, he turned to Eleanor. "Lady Blackwood," he said, treating her name with a respect she'd forgotten she deserved. "What do you wish?" The simple question broke something inside her. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized no one had asked her that in years. Not her father when he arranged this fate. Not the servants who had packed her belongings. Not the driver who had delivered her here. "I have nowhere to go," she whispered, the admission painful but true. "My father has made his decision." Maka studied her face for a long moment. "Then I offer you sanctuary, not ownership. You will be a guest among my people, free to choose your own path." The officer sputtered objections, but Maka silenced him with a look. "Tell Duke Blackwood his arrangement is rejected. If peace is his concern, he should send honest words, not unwilling people." As darkness fell fully over the trading post, Eleanor gathered her few belongings. The carriage that had brought her already turned back toward the life that had rejected her. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also the first glimmer of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. "It will not be easy," Maka warned as they prepared to depart. "Our ways are different from yours." Eleanor looked back at the empty road behind her, then to the wilderness ahead. "Nothing in my life has been easy," she replied, straightening her shoulders. "But perhaps different is exactly what I need." Under a canopy of stars more brilliant than any ballroom chandelier, Eleanor Blackwood took her first steps toward a life she'd never imagined. One where her worth might be measured not by the narrowness of her waist but by the strength of her character and the courage in her heart. The Apache settlement revealed itself gradually as they crested the final hill. Not the primitive encampment Eleanor had been led to expect, but a thoughtfully arranged community nestled in a sheltered valley. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and children's laughter carried on the evening breeze. "This is Nehemina," Maka explained. "It means mystic in your tongue. The springs here have healing properties." Eleanor nodded, suddenly conscious of the curious gazes turned their way. She felt exposed, her elaborate traveling dress absurdly out of place against the practical garments of Maka's people. Whispers followed them as Maka led her toward a dwelling near the center of the settlement. "They wonder why you've brought a white woman here," an elderly woman said in English, appearing at Maka's side. Her face was mapped with lines of wisdom, her eyes sharp with assessment. "Grandmother," Maka greeted her with respect. "This is Lady Eleanor Blackwood. Her father sent her away as a gift." The word twisted with distaste on his tongue. "I could not leave her there." The old woman, Kimmy, studied Eleanor with unnerving intensity. "So the white chief discards his own blood." She shook her head. "Come, child. You must be hungry." That first meal around Kimmy's fire became Eleanor's introduction to a world where worth was measured differently. While she ate, 3 women entered, speaking rapidly in Apache. Their conversation with Maka grew heated until he raised his hand for silence. "What's happening?" Eleanor asked. "The council questions my decision to bring you here," he answered honestly. "Some fear you are a spy. Others worry your presence will bring soldiers." "I'm neither," she said quietly. "I'm just unwanted." Kimmy translated her words, and something in the women's expressions shifted. One of them, younger than the others with intelligent eyes, approached Eleanor and spoke directly to her. "Nazca says that unwanted things often have the most valuable spirits," Kimmy translated. "She will help you learn our ways." The days that followed tested Eleanor in ways she'd never imagined. Her hands, soft from a lifetime of leisure, blistered as she learned to prepare hides and gather plants. Her fair skin burned under the relentless sun. Her muscles ached from unfamiliar labor. Yet each night, as she collapsed onto her sleeping mat in Kimmy's dwelling, she felt a strange new satisfaction. "You work hard," Maka observed one evening, finding her by the stream where she was washing the day's dust from her face. "Many expected you to demand special treatment." "Like a noblewoman?" Eleanor smiled wryly. "That title did me little good in the end." "Titles mean nothing here," he said, sitting beside her. "Only actions." Over the following weeks, Eleanor found herself drawn to Makara's quiet strength. Unlike the men of her father's court, he listened when she spoke. He valued her observations about medicinal plants, comparing them to Apache healing traditions. When she struggled with a task, he demonstrated with patience rather than mockery. The first time Eleanor made Nazca laugh with her halting attempts at the Apache language, something shifted inside her. When Kimmy praised her healing poultice for a child's fever, Eleanor felt a flutter of pride. When she successfully tracked game with the hunting party, even the most skeptical warriors nodded with newfound respect. One evening, as autumn painted the landscape in gold and crimson, Eleanor found herself alone with Maka as they returned from gathering medicinal herbs. "Do you miss your old life?" he asked. Eleanor considered the question seriously. "I miss books," she admitted. "Music sometimes. But the rest." She shook her head. "I spent my entire life being told I was too much, too tall, too large, too outspoken. Here, I am simply enough." Maka's gaze softened. "You were never too much, Eleanor. They were too small." When he reached for her hand, Eleanor didn't pull away. His fingers were calloused from work, strong and gentle as they entwined with hers. In that touch, She felt something she'd never experienced in the grand ballrooms of her father's world. Acceptance without condition, desire without shame. "My people have a saying," Maka murmured as the setting sun gilded his features. "The heart knows its true home, even when the mind is lost." Under a canopy of changing leaves, Eleanor Blackwood, daughter of a duke, outcast of society, and now something entirely new, found herself stepping into an embrace that felt impossibly like coming home. For the first time in her life, her body wasn't a burden to bear but a strength to celebrate. Her spirit not a disappointment but a wonder to behold. And in Maka's eyes, she finally saw herself as she truly was. Not too much, but exactly right. Winter descended on Nehemina with a ferocity Eleanor had never experienced. Snow blanketed the valley, transforming the landscape into a pristine wilderness that was both beautiful and unforgiving. Within the warm confines of what had become her home, Eleanor sat beside Kimmy, carefully grinding herbs for winter remedies while listening to the elders' stories. "Before the white man came," Kimmy said, her gnarled fingers working deftly despite their age, "the balance was different. Not perfect, people are never perfect, but there was understanding between the land and those who walked upon it." Eleanor nodded, thinking of her father's estates, how the natural world had been bent and shaped to his will, forests cleared for decorative gardens, streams redirected for ornamental ponds. "My father believes conquest is the natural order," she said quietly. "The strong command, the weak obey." Kimmy's eyes crinkled with a wisdom that transcended cultures. "And yet here you are, cast out by your own father's strength, now finding your own." The truth of those words resonated within Eleanor. In the months since her arrival, her body had transformed, not becoming smaller as her father had always demanded, but stronger. Her arms could now draw a bow with confidence. Her legs could carry her for miles across rugged terrain. Her hands could build, create, and heal. More profound was the transformation within. The shame that had been her constant companion in noble society had gradually faded, replaced by a quiet pride in her capabilities and contributions to the community. And then there was Maka. Their courtship had progressed with a deliberate patience that felt foreign to Eleanor's understanding of romance. There were no elaborate declarations or performative gestures, only genuine moments of connection. A shared smile across the communal fire, the silent communication of hunting partners, the gentle touch of hands beneath starlight. "He goes to speak with the council today," Kimmy said, interrupting Eleanor's thoughts. "About your union." Eleanor's hands stilled. "Will they oppose it?" "Some will," Kimmy acknowledged. "Fear makes people cling to what they know, and your presence has already changed much among us." It was true. Eleanor had introduced new medicinal preparations that complemented traditional remedies. She had taught several children to read and write English, skills that Maka believed would help them navigate the changing world. In turn, she had embraced Apache traditions, finding wisdom in their harmony with the natural world. "Change is not always destruction," Eleanor murmured, repeating one of Maka's favorite sayings. Kimmy nodded approvingly. "You understand more than most who come from your world." That evening, as snow fell in gentle curtains outside, Maka returned from the council meeting. The set of his shoulders told Eleanor everything before he spoke. "The council is divided," he said simply, settling beside her near the fire. "Half see the strength in bringing new knowledge to our people. Half fear losing our ways entirely." Eleanor reached for his hand. "What do you believe?" His fingers tightened around hers. "I believe that wisdom can come from many sources without diminishing what we already know. I believe that adaptation has always been the way of my people." His dark eyes held hers steadily. "And I believe that what we have found together is worth fighting for." The decision came 3 days later after much deliberation. They would be permitted to unite, but with conditions. Eleanor must complete the traditional trials that any woman seeking to join the tribe would face, and Maka must journey to speak with neighboring tribes to ensure their union would not threaten existing alliances. The trials were demanding tests of endurance, knowledge, and spirit that pushed Eleanor to her limits. She fasted alone for 2 days in the winter wilderness, protected only by skills she had learned. She demonstrated her knowledge of healing, preparing remedies under the critical eyes of tribal healers. She stood before the council and spoke in their language, sharing her vision for a future that honored tradition while embracing necessary change. When Maka returned from his diplomatic journey, snow had begun to melt from the valley. He found Eleanor teaching a group of children, her once elaborate dress long since replaced by practical Apache garments, her formerly carefully arranged hair now woven with meaningful beads that marked her accomplishments. "The neighboring tribes have concerns," he told her later as they walked along the awakening spring landscape, "but not objections. They wish to meet you." Eleanor nodded, no longer daunted by such prospects. "And the council?" A rare, broad smile transformed Makara's serious face. "They have agreed. When the moon is full again, we may be joined as one." Their union ceremony took place as spring fully claimed the valley. Eleanor stood before the tribe wearing a dress that symbolized her journey, crafted in Apache style but incorporating elements from her former world. Around her neck hung a pendant Maka had carved, representing their two paths merging into one. As ancient words bound them together beneath an endless sky, Eleanor reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. Cast out as worthless by one world, she had discovered her true value in another. The body that had been deemed shameful in noble society was celebrated here for its strength and capability. The mind that had been dismissed as inappropriately curious was now respected for its wisdom. And in Maka, steadfast, principled Maka, she had found not just a partner but a mirror that reflected her true self, undistorted by society's narrow expectations. "Two rivers joining do not lose themselves," Maka murmured the traditional words as he placed his hands in hers. "They become something greater together." As the celebration continued around them, Eleanor gazed toward the distant mountains where somewhere beyond, her father's world continued without her. She felt no longing for it now, no yearning for acceptance from those who had rejected her. In the wild lands where she had been sent as punishment, Eleanor Blackwood had found not just love but transformation, becoming not less of herself, as her father had always demanded, but magnificently, unapologetically more.